let's say you have a Ford Explorer that looks like this one. This is a 2005 Ford Explorer, 3rd generation. Stuff is leaking out of it. It smells like coolant. Nothing in the obvious places by the radiator or anything. You may have a bad thermostat housing. Gasket's gone bad inside of there. Don't try to change a gasket on a thermostat housing. Just buy a new one, 50 bucks approximately for a decent one. Here's the location, but first let me let you know that I am in no way, shape, or form a professional. This is not a professional diagnosis or instructions. I am in no way qualified to tell you how to fix anything on your vehicle, but this is just my experience, and I found myself here when I was working for a car dealership, and the owner, I don't know, he just kind of started giving up, and he would buy a few junk vehicles, do nothing to get them ready. I'm not a mechanic. I wasn't paid to be a mechanic, but I was paid to sell the vehicles. So this is something I self-diagnosed and just kind of went after it myself. And it was a success in the end, so I'm sharing it with you. So here's where you find the thermostat housing on your Ford Explorer like this, or I guess any Ford that had this engine in it. You'll see a hose, 2 hoses, because there's water going in and out. There's the thermostat inside of there, and there's the plug that goes to that sensor or that thermostat. So what I did, jacked up the Explorer using these high quality Harbor Freight tools here. I grabbed a pan from the back. So what I was going to do is drain the rest of the coolant from the lower part of the radiator. There should be a cap that you can find just like that, which you can unscrew pretty easily and let out from the lowermost part of your radiator. Let out the coolant, which will get it not bone dry, but pretty close. So after you do that on a job like this, you won't need to disconnect a bunch of hoses from the bottom of the radiator or anything like that. Could put your cap back on. Got a 19 millimeter socket here. We're going to start taking things apart to be able to remove the faulty thermostat housing counterclockwise to undo things, clockwise to do things. Tighten, untighten. Once I started taking that off, lots of juice started coming out. That right there. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't know all these fancy terms, but you can see that bright coolant flowing out of here. We need to do that and try to collect that to be good to the earth while we change our thermostat housing on this Ford Explorer here. I did end up selling this vehicle for $2,500. It had a lot of miles on it. Anyway, back to this issue. There's your hoses and stuff.
Bolts on this rear
there's your thermostat housing, and I see 3 we need to get these hoses out of the way.
So that's what we're going to take off together and
remove from the thermostat housing, which is where your coolant is going in and out, and it's being measured by what's inside of there, which is a thermostat, and it lets your vehicle know how much flow to let go, if it's overheating, things like that. So I've got a box of tools there. We're going to find some pliers here, and you release these ring thingies by pinching them, which makes them bigger. You give it a little pinch and it grows. That way you can slide those rings up, and once you slide those up, you should be able to remove your hoses. This is also a good time to check the condition of your hoses. Make sure they're not cracked, leaking. They look like they're about to go, about to blow. So once you get these rings off of these hoses or slid back, you'll be able to take the hoses out, and from there you'll see where things get really tricky. Still, a novice can do this. An amateur shade tree mechanic can do this. Things are kind of crammed up in this area, and since I'm not super great with my hands when it comes to mechanic work, I'm probably taking more time than it's going to take a real man to do this. But like I said, in the end, things did wind up being a success after they became really complicated. Make sure you pay attention, because at this point you might think you can just stop this video and you're going to be fine because you know what you're doing. I built up that kind of confidence this quickly as well, never doing a job anywhere near close to this. If we look here, we can see what's left, and it's these bolts. So before you fool with anything that's electric, when you fool with those electrics, you want to disconnect your battery. You don't want a power source going there. So if you boo bop and pop your ground off of there, you should be fine. And now we're going to take a bolt off so we can get the wiring harness off of the thermostat thingy that does the electrics and registers. I don't know. But you see these bolts here? This is where we're going to have the problem, because these bolts, I'm going to let you know right now, one of them is going to break off. And when I Googled that, I realized it's a common occurrence. Those bolts will degrade over time, and there's part of a bolt that is left in there. That's your thermostat that we're looking at right there. Makes things open and close, controls flow, lets your vehicle know the temperature. That is one ashy elbow you just saw. I had not realized at this point that something went drastically wrong, and the bolt had snapped off. It presented a problem for this towards the end, and I believe an epoxy was used to get this down the road. Even without the epoxy, it was fairly tight on there, and it didn't seem to be leaking. But whatever kind of epoxy that we added, we tried to drill tried to recover that bolt and drill it out of there, and we couldn't get it done. Couldn't do something like that safely either. But yeah, that's a problem. That's a good chunk of the threads that are down in there. So you want to be really careful with that. Use the proper torque, proper specs, things like that. I think I even may have lied to the boss. That's what it should look like. That's what it should look like if you did it right. But I believe I even lied to the boss and said it was already like that. That's probably why it was leaking. Who knows? But that's the biggest issue. It seems like an easy job. It really does. And then you run into something like that, which isn't that always the way. But we're going to continue here because I still was not quite aware of everything that had gone wrong, and just looking back on it now. And really, I filmed this many months ago, so I'm so far removed from it, I can't remember a lot of the parts that are happening here. Now, I found another hose under here, so that probably caught me by surprise. And it's super gunky, and I'm trying to be as cautious and careful as I can be with that flathead screwdriver, but apparently I did get that off, and now it seems like it's just a matter of wiggling and jiggling and getting this out of here. Looks like I still didn't undo that snap end part for whatever sensor that is. I don't know why I'm waiting for that. Can't quite remember, and again, I'm not a professional and I don't have a great memory. Actually, I'd like to forget this. I'd like to forget this entire job, because what was happening here was I was trying to fix vehicles to be able to sell them, to make $1, to not have to pinch a squirt of gas here and there from work to be able to get home so I could get back to work and not make any money, but work my ass off and feel like nothing. But anyway, hey, those are my own issues. Here we go. We got it off of there. We got it off there. And nice mess down there. That is the one. The rear, I guess the rear to your right, if you're facing the engine, that's the one that broke off in there. So take a closer look here. Be careful when you finally do release this wire harness here. It's all plastic. Everything is plastic. It'll come out pretty easily for you, though. Take a look at that. Make sure it's not yucky and corroded and gross. That one was nice and clean. So this is your thermostat housing. It is housing the thermostat. The thermostat is in there. When you order your new thermostat housing, it won't look exactly like that because it won't have a thermostat in there. Now, do you want to get a new thermostat as well? If you feel like you're going to fix this vehicle and you're going to be able to get down the road with it, you might want to invest in that while you have all this apart. Wouldn't hurt. But this is how bad the gasket on this thermostat housing was looking, and that's why it needed to be.
If you find this video entertaining or helpful, use the super thanks button. That's how it looks on your mobile device. And this is what super thanks looks like on your desktop or your laptop.
Ryan here.
Reviews.
silly reviews.